As we continue our wall-to-wall coverage of Tropical Storm
Beryl.
Beryl, thank you. It's been a long
night and morning, yeah. So Amy's taking a much-needed break, and I'm in for you now. We're going to get straight over to Justin Stapleton. And Justin, so since the last time I was out here joining you guys, this thing has moved kind of north. Where is it now? Is it right at, like, I see IAH there on the map?
Yeah, it's just north of Bush Intercontinental at this point. And this is the 12 o'clock advisory. This just dropped a little bit ago. It's still moving north-northeast at around 13 miles an hour, so that's good. This is going to be out of here in the next 2 hours at this point. We were just talking the Weather Center here. In about another hour, the radar really isn't going to be much of the story. It's really on the ground. You saw Robert Arnold a second ago there with the damage that those folks were seeing, that massive tree that was in a part of their yard or into their garage at this point. Also, pressure's been rising. Maximum winds are at 65 miles an hour. Now, we're not going to get a new track until we get to about 3 o'clock this afternoon, but just trust me on this. The track's going to move north pretty quick, and once it's out of here, it's out of here. Here's, I think, the issue going forward over the next couple of hours is going to be this. Elevated not only creeks, Maid Creek, for example, Bear Creek, and then, of course, some of the bayou systems that Mayor Whitmire had mentioned before. Buffalo Bayou is having trouble down towards UHD campus at the Milam. That goes over towards the Spaghetti Warehouse, if you're familiar with where that used to be. I can't recall what it is now. I think it's a sports bar or something like that. Anyway, my guess is that bridge that goes over towards UHD, underneath it, over to the Student Center, is probably flooded out. This is Greens Bayou up in Spring there. That's West Greens Road. You see how swollen that is. And then, of course, as we mentioned, our own Corley Peel is out headed her way towards White Oak Bayou over at Heights Boulevard. Guarantee that one probably is close to the bank, and that running and walking and biking path that they have next to that, that's over towards UHD where the new business and science building is, that's probably underwater here as well. So as soon as we get a live shot from her, we'll take a look at that. Here's what we saw just over the last 12 hours, and you see where the hurricane came right up here across parts of Fort Bend County. We always talk about where's the dirty side. Dirty side was right here across Houston Metro. We saw anywhere from 6 to 7, 8, 10 inches in some spots. I wouldn't be shocked when we get the final results from the National Weather Service if there's something closer to a foot of rain, which is why those bayous are really swollen like they are. Contrast that to College Station and Brehm. They only picked up about 1.5 inches of rain, just under 2 inches in El Campo. So it really was just this avenue of water coming right at us. And same thing in Galveston. That's one of the issues they've had down there. Owen Conflenti and, of course, all of the fellows that have been down there across parts of the central and west end of the island. Here's what it looks like on the Storm Tracker 2 live radar right now. Most of what we're seeing out here continues to slide northward, but I'm going to put this in motion over the last hour just so you get a sense of how fast the center is moving. There is still a chance to see some wraparound stronger winds. I'm not going to go strong winds or damaging winds, but probably 25, 30, 35 mile an hour wind gusts from College Station on down towards parts of Fort Bend County. But if we jump in a little tighter, here's what we were talking about. Amy and I were kind of having a discussion about this, is that some of the issues they were dealing with at the Lake Livingston Dam, where they were trying to reinforce some of that dam so they were not going to see a dam failure. Thankfully, I think this wave is moving through quick enough that this probably will not cause an issue. I'm not going to say that definitively. Certainly something I want to make sure that we'll let the Corps of Engineers handle that. But notice that all of our flash flood warnings on the north side here has been replaced by an aerial flood advisory, and that goes until 3 o'clock. So that aerial flood or that flood warning, it looks like until 3 o'clock there. So if we put a stop to that now, notice that there are still flash flood warnings. That includes Bush up towards a bunch of Montgomery County. That's until 1 o'clock. And then, of course, the big one here, and this is mainly just because of the amount of heavy rain that we saw. Not only do we have the flash flood warning out for most of Harris proper, and that's until 1 o'clock. They will probably extend this as well. But if you look just to the south of there, that aerial flood warning, let me move this out of the way, all of these sort of lime green boxes across the area, these are all active flood warnings. So there's Buffalo Bayou, there's White Oak, you've got some back off South Maid Creek out towards the west side, moving on down towards parts of Sugar Land as well, Oyster Creek, all of these areas in particular. There's Braze Bayou on 288. So all of that we're going to have to watch very carefully over the next hour or so as all of this starts to move on out. Wave heights, as I mentioned a second ago, what an improvement down there. Gage's shot where they were driving a minute ago is really remarkable if you think about the fact that they thought they had flooded out the truck about, almost 12 hours ago at this point, and was in a house that was shaking because the wind was just not safe for them to be out in. So had quite an afternoon and a morning for certainly that crew. Both Oscar and Gage doing incredible work down there. LaPorte, Galveston, Surfside Beach, 8, 10, 9 feet, still looking at all of that strong south wind. So some of the flood issues that we're dealing with out there are still there. And in fact, it's still messy out here, and we expect to see these wind speeds that are 25 to 30 miles an hour. Some of the wind gusts that are closer to 40 to 50 miles an hour are still going to cause some problems. So some of those downed trees that we've seen, and some areas that were down because limbs, power lines down. I think we were over 2 million people without power at this point. We're going to start to see some of those numbers shift a little further north as things improve here along the south side. But it's probably going to take a while, at least 12, 24, maybe 48 hours for a lot of those folks to get power back. Thankfully, guys, it's not like it was a derecho where we were talking about the infrastructure itself was just absolutely crumpled and crushed. This, I think, is just going to be more inconvenience where there's just so much widespread power outages. It's just going to take crews time to get out there and reconnect everything and turn the boxes back on.
So, Justin, we've got 2.2 million people, almost 2.2 million without power, according to the Centerpoint website right now. And you expect that these flood warnings are going to keep getting extended? I mean, earlier we said it was until 9 a.m., 10 a.m. It looks like the Brazoria County one is in effect until 8 p.m. now. Yeah. So you think that's just going to keep happening? Yeah, I think so. My guess is what we'll see, Haley, with this in particular is that we'll probably see the flood advisory or the flash flood warnings turn into flood advisories as we get into the latter half of the afternoon. The flash flood warnings are out there, especially now for much of the metro area, because the bayous are still very, very, very swollen. And that's part of the issue here. So if we zoom in a little tighter on this here, both of these, so you notice on the north side here where they actually had some of these rain bands move through, but they moved through pretty quickly from Cleveland to Conroe, parts of Montgomery County, now up to Livingston. So they didn't take the brunt of the rain, if you want to think of it that way, right? So the brunt of it came right across here, in through downtown, and then up across Bush Intercontinental. So that's why if you jump in a little tighter on this here, notice most of these green areas are all active flood warnings, and that's why the flash flood warnings are still in place. I wouldn't be shocked if they extend these to, let's say, maybe 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon. Once the bayous start to I don't want to say de-swell because that's not the right word. It's not even a really word, actually. But once they start to get a little more under control, which they will over the next few hours as we start to slowly dry out, and I'll put that in quotations because it'll clearly take more than that, I think they'll probably remove those, put them as aerial flood advisories, and then it's just going to be a question of when do some of these gauges go down, which Caroline has been watching for most of the morning here as well. And some of those gauges, Caroline, went fast in terms of what we were seeing. South Maid Creek and, of course, Buffalo Bayou at Milam down at UHD campus is about, 7 feet over at this point.
Well over the bank, and it rose incredibly fast. In fact, we're starting to get some click-to pins showing just how elevated these bayous are. This is West Greens Road Bayou. You can see it well out of its banks. This is going to be a concern really as we continue to go forward. This is a live look from our city camera. It's the Empower Pharmacy camera, but man, you can hardly see anything because we have another shower that's moved its way in here in southwest Houston. In fact, if we animate this, you'll notice we were kind of in the clear, but now some light rain has moved in. Thankfully, not going to be the same tropical downpours, but because we're so saturated, any additional rainfall is not wanted at this point. Now, where we have the heaviest rainfall, in fact, we just got an email from a viewer up in Montgomery asking, hey, we're inside the eye wall. How long do we get to wait? How long do we get to enjoy this dry spell? I'll tell you what, it actually is pretty large here. You can see it's extending through Montgomery County. Likely all you're going to have behind that is just going to be more light rainfall. But where we're seeing the heaviest of the rainfall, that's going to be currently around the Lake Livingston area. All of that red from Cold Spring up towards on Alaska. This is going to be a drenching rain. Trinity, Huntsville, certainly going to continue to stay soggy. And the concern here is that it is impacting our streams, especially around the Houston area. In fact, I just want to show you 2 streams. The first one's going to be Brays Bayou at Gessner Road. This is now actually continuing to rise. Flooding is going to be possible. The next one is going to be White Oak Bayou at Heights Boulevard. You can see this is still rising right now. It's over about 7 feet above its banks.